Shalom, Lakam, Kal, Yashara'al. How's your peace, Israel? Welcome back to another video. We are going to continue. We just ended off in the midway of chapter 12 of Debarim, Hasafar, chapter 12. We're on verse 15. We're going to get straight back into it. And it reads on this wise. It says, However, you may slaughter and eat meat within any of your towns, as much as you desire, according to the blessing of the Lord your God that he has given you. The unclean and the clean may eat of it, as of the gazelle, and as of the deer. Only you shall not eat the blood, you shall pour it out on the earth like water. You may not eat within your towns the tithe of your grain, or your wine, or your oil, or the firstborn of your herd, or of your flock, or any of your vow offerings that you vow, or your freewill offerings, or the contribution that you present. But you shall eat them before the Lord your God in the place that the Lord your God will choose. You and your sons and your daughter, your male servant and your female servant, and the Levite who is within your towns, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God in all that you undertake. Take care that you do not neglect the Levite as long as you live in your land, when the Lord your God enlarges your territory as he has promised you, and you say, I will eat meat because you crave meat. You may eat meat whenever you desire. If the place that the Lord your God will choose to put his name there is too far from you, then you may kill any of your herd or your flock, which the Lord has given you, as I have commanded you, and you may eat within your towns whenever you desire. Just as the gazelle or the deer is eaten, so you may eat of it. The unclean and the clean alike may eat of it. Only be sure that you do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life, and you shall not eat the life with the flesh. You shall not eat it. You shall pour it out on the earth like water. You shall not eat it, that all may go well with you and with your children after you, when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord. But the holy things that are due from you and your vow offerings you shall take, and you shall go to the place that the Lord will choose, and offer your burnt offerings, the flesh and the blood, on the altar of the Lord your God. The blood of the sacrifices shall be poured out on the altar of the Lord your God, but the flesh you may eat. Be careful to obey all these words that I command you, that I may go well with you and with your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the sight of the Lord your God. Context is warning against idolatry. When the Lord your God cuts off before you the nations whom you go into dispossess, and you dispossess them and dwell in their land, take care that you be not ensnared to follow them after they have destroyed before you, and that you do not inquire about their gods, saying, How did these nations serve their gods, that I also may do the same? You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abominable thing that the Lord hates they have done for their gods, for they have burnt their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods. Everything that I command you, you shall be careful to do. You shall not add to it or take away from it. If a prophet or dreamer or dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder that he tells you comes to pass, and if he says, let us go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them, you shall not listen to the words of the prophet or the dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart or all your soul. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him, and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and hold fast to him. But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has taught rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you out of the house of slavery, to make you leave the way in which the Lord your God commanded you to walk, So you shall purge the evil from your midst. If your brother, the son of your mother, or the son of your son or your daughter, or the wife you embrace, or friend who is as your own soul, entices you secretly, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods," which neither you nor your fathers have known, some of the gods of the peoples who are around you, whether near you or far off from you, from the end of the earth to the other, you shall not yield to him or listen to him, nor shall your eye pity him, nor shall you spare him, nor shall you conceal him, but you shall kill him. Your hand shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. You shall stone him to death with stones, because he sought to draw you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And all Israel shall hear and fear, and never again do any such wickedness as this among you. If you hear in one of your cities, which the Lord your God is giving you to dwell there, that certain worthless fellows have gone out among you, and have drawn away the inhabitants of their city, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods which you have not known," then you shall inquire and make search and ask diligently, and behold, if it be true and certain that such an abomination has been done among you, you shall surely put the inhabitants of that city to the sword, devoting it to destruction, all who are in it, and its cattle, with the edge of the sword. You shall gather all its spoil into the midst of its open square, and burn the city and all its spoil with fire, as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. It shall be a heap forever. It shall not be built again. None of the devoted things shall stick to your hand, that the Lord may turn from the fierceness of his anger, and show you mercy and have compassion on you, multiplying you as he swore to your fathers. If you obey the voice of the Lord your God, keeping all his commandments that I am commanding you today, and doing what is right in the sight of the Lord your God, clean and unclean foods is the context of the next, is 14th chapter. It says, "You are the sons of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves or make any baldness on your foreheads for the dead, for you are a people holy to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. You shall not eat any abomination. These are the animals you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roebuck, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. Every animal that parts the hoof and has the hoof cloven in two, and chews the cud among the animals you may eat. Yet of those that chew the cud or have the hoof cloven, you shall not eat these: the camel, the hare, and the rock badger, because they chew the cud but do not part the hoof, are unclean for you. And the pig, because it parts the hoof but does not chew the cud, is unclean for you. Their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcass you shall not touch. Of all that are in the waters you may eat these. Whatever has fins and scales you may eat, and whatever does not have fins and scales you shall not eat. It is unclean for you. You may eat all clean birds, but these are the ones that you shall not eat: the eagle, the bearded vulture, the black vulture, the kite, the falcon of any kind, every raven of any kind, the ostrich, the nighthawk, the seagull, the hawk of any kind, the light owl, and the shorted ear owl, the barn owl, and the tawny owl, the carrion vulture, and the cormorant, the stork, the heron of any kind, the hoopoe, and the bat, and all winged insects are unclean for you. They shall not be eaten. All clean winged things you may eat. You shall not eat anything that has died naturally. You may give it to the sojourner who is within your towns, that he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Okay, next context is tithe. Verse 22, it says, "You shall tithe all the yield of your seed that comes from your field, from the field year by year, and before the Lord your God in the place that he will choose to make his name dwell there. You shall eat the tithe of your grain, of your wine, and of your oil, and the firstborn of your herd and flock, that you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. And if the way is too long for you, so that you are not able to carry the tithe, when the Lord your God blesses you, because the place is too far from you, which the Lord your God chooses to set his name there. So this is the place where you pay tithes. It's not in these churches and things like this. You're supposed to actually pay tithes where he placed his name. And there's only one place that he's placed his name. Okay. So we can give free will offerings to the quote unquote church, but in regards to tithing was a system which was specifically put there for the Levites because they didn't have a portion of land. Then you shall turn it into money and bind up the money in your hand and go to the place that the Lord your God chooses and spend the money for whatever you desire, oxen or sheep or wine or strong drink, whatever your appetite craves. You shall eat there before the Lord your God and rejoice, you and your household, and you shall not neglect the Levite who is within your towns, for he has no portion or inheritance with you. At the end of every 3 years you shall bring out all the tithe of your produce in the same year, and lay it up within your towns. And the Levite, because he has no portion or inheritance with you, and the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow who are within your towns, shall come and eat and be filled, that the Lord your God may bless you in all your work of your hands that you do. Verse 15, the sabbatical year. It says, at the end of every 7 years, you shall grant a release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor shall release what he has lent to his neighbor. He shall not exact it of his neighbor, his brother, because the Lord's release has been proclaimed. Of a foreigner you may exact it, but whatever of yours is with your brother, your hand shall release. But there will be no poor among you, for the Lord will bless you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance to possess. If only you will strictly obey the voice of the Lord your God, being careful to do all this commandment that I command you today, for the Lord your God will bless you as he promised you, and shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And you shall rule over many nations, but they shall not rule over you. If among you one of your brothers should become poor in any of your towns within your land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart or shut your hand against your poor brother, but you shall open your hand to him and lend him sufficient for his need, whatever it may be. Take care lest there be an unworthy thought in your heart, and you say, the seventh year, the year of release is near, and your eye look grudgingly on your poor brother, and you give him nothing, and he cry to the Lord against you, and you be guilty of sin. You shall give to him freely, and your heart shall not be grudging when you give to him, because for this the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in all that you undertake. For there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, and to the poor in the land. If your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, is sold to you, he shall serve you 6 years, and in the 7th year you shall let him go free from you. And when you let him go free from you, you shall not let him go empty-handed. You shall furnish him liberally out of your flock, out of your threshing floor, and out of your winepress, as the Lord your God has blessed you. You shall give to him. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore I command you this today. But if he says to you, I will not go out from you, because he loves you and your household, since he is well off with you, then you shall take an awl and put it through his ear into the door, and he shall be your slave forever. And to your female slave you shall do the same. It shall not seem hard to you when you let him go free from you. For at half the cost of a hired worker he has served you 6 years. So the Lord your God will bless your heart in all that you do. All the firstborn males that are born of your herd and flock you shall dedicate to the Lord your God. You shall not do work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You shall eat it and your house and your household before the Lord your God year by year at the place that the Lord will choose. But if it has any blemish, if it is lame or blind or has any serious blemish, whatever you shall not sacrifice it, serious blemish, whatever, you shall not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. You shall eat it within your towns. The unclean and the clean alike may eat it, as though it were a gazelle or a deer. Only you shall not eat its blood, you shall pour it out on the ground like water. Chapter 16. Okay, this was dealing with the Passover. It says, observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover to the Lord your God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night, and you shall offer the Passover sacrifice to the Lord your God from the flock of the herd at the place that the Lord will choose to make his name dwell there. You shall eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days you shall eat it with unleavened bread, the bread of affliction, for you came out of the land of Egypt in haste, that all the days of your life you may remember the day when you came out of the land of Egypt. No leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory for 7 days, nor shall any of the flesh that you sacrifice on the evening of the first day remain all night until the morning. You may not offer the Passover sacrifice within any of your towns that the Lord your God is giving you, but at the place that the Lord your God will choose to make his name dwell in it, there you shall offer the Passover sacrifice in the evening at sunset, at the time you came out of Egypt. And you shall cook it and eat it at the place that the Lord your God will choose. And in the morning you shall turn and go to your tents. For 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a solemn assembly to the Lord your God. You shall not do no work on it. The context is the Feast of Weeks. Okay, it says you shall count 7 weeks. Begin to count from the 7 weeks from the time the sickle was first put to the standing grain. Then you shall keep the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God with the tribute of a freewill offering from your hand, which you shall give as the Lord your God blesses you. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your son and your daughter and your male servant and your female servant, the Levite who is within your towns, the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow who are among you, at the place that the Lord your God will choose to make his name dwell there. You shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and you shall be careful to observe these statutes. The context here is the Feast of Booths. It says, you shall keep the Feast of Booths 7 days, when you have gathered in the produce from your threshing floor and your winepress. You shall rejoice in your feast, you and your son and your daughter, your male servant and your female servant, the Levite, the sojourner, the fatherless, the widow who are within your towns. For 7 days you shall keep the feast to the Lord your God at the place that the Lord will choose, because the Lord your God will bless you in all your produce and in all the work of your hands, so that you will be altogether joyful. 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the Lord your God at the place that he will choose, at the feast of unleavened bread, at the feast of weeks, and the feast of booths. They shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God that he has given you. The context of the next one is justice. You shall appoint judges and officers in all your towns that the Lord your God has given you, according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not pervert justice, you shall not show partiality, and you shall not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of the righteous. Justice and only justice shall you shall follow, that you may live and inherit the land that the Lord your God has given you. Context is forbidden forms of worship. It says, you shall not plant any tree as an Asherah beside the altar of the Lord your God that you shall make, and you shall not set up a pillar which the Lord your God hates. Okay? We're on chapter 17. Through the Spirit, I believe this is the new moon. I've been for the last day, like from since yesterday, a few things occurred. This is one of the most difficult parts, is trying to establish the new moon without being able to have, uh, you know, a watchman. We've got a watchman. We've got the elder who, you know, he sounds the trumpet. He lets everyone know that the new moon is found in Israel. But one of the things I found is that I used to follow that the same new moon as that he announces, but I used to find that because Israel is, there's a bit of a time difference in between Israel and the UK. You tend to find that actually the new moon actually tends to happen. Let's just say like a day after like the next day in the UK, but it happens in Israel first, and then it happens like the day after in the UK. Then it happens a day after in America. So like because of the time zone difference, it seems like the days fall. They're slightly staggered. From through experience, I'm not always 100%, but from my experience and trial and error and things like that, this is what I seem to have found. So it's the same thing with the Shabbat. So any day that you find that it falls in Israel, in the UK, I tend to find that it's the day after that it will literally fall on. You see what I'm saying? And even now, I'm still trying to suss out whether this is the new moon. A few things happened yesterday, or let's just say, yeah, yesterday, where I went to a shop and, you know, I was trying to buy something and the queue was a bit, I was the only one that's in the queue. And it was a bit of a long queue. I was at the front of the queue. And through the Spirit, it was like as if I shouldn't have been buying those things. I felt wrong because like there was there was something going on, and I'm trying to assess right now to figure out whether it was it because that was the new moon, because basically the moon goes behind the sun for 2 days, or 1 day, so you got to figure out, that's where the new moon watch occurs, when the watchman announces to see where the new moon is. If it's in Israel, it's in Israel, you see it, and then that's when you know you acknowledge that that's the first. But we can't, in this place that we're in our captivity, I can't see the moon. And you could obviously use the internet, but the websites, they're not even accurate. They think the new moon is when it's dark, when you don't see it. So it's through the Spirit that we can gain understanding about whether it's the new moon or not. So there's a few things that I can always figure out. It's usually when I wake up. I can usually wake up and I can sense that today is not a normal day. It's like I'll usually wake up really early. It's because I'll be highly spirited, which will give me the energy. So that's another thing to find out. But I'm reading the scriptures is also another way, because it enables, if I don't get tired as I'm reading the scriptures, it means that the Spirit is moving, because it's not a normal day. Do you see what I'm saying? That's the other reason how I can find out. So that's what we're trying to do here, as well as for the listener and reader, to gain edification. Okay, so we're in chapter 17. It says, "You shall not sacrifice to the Lord your God an ox or a sheep in which is a blemish, any defect, whatever, for that is an abomination to the Lord your God. If there is found among you within any of your towns that the Lord your God is giving you a man or woman who does what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other gods and worshipped them, or the sun or the moon, or any of the host of heaven which I have forbidden, and it is told you, and you hear of it, then you shall inquire diligently, and And if it is true and certain that such an abomination has been done in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates the man or woman who has done this evil thing. You shall stone that man or woman to death with stones. On the evidence of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, the one who is to die shall be put to death. A person shall not be put to death on the evidence of 1 witness. The hand of the witness shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. Okay, now we know that judgment is obviously something that's been postponed to a particular day, so we don't need to be doing such things like this, right? I'm talking about the killing aspect. The context of this part is legal decisions by priests and judges. It says, if any case arises requiring decision between one kind of homicide and another, one kind of legal right and another, or one kind of assault and another, any case within your towns that is too difficult for you, then you shall arise and go up to the place that the Lord your God will choose, i.e., Mount Zion, and you shall come to the Levitical priest. Now, in this case, we don't have a Levitical priesthood, right? And to the judge who is in office in those days. Okay, so and you shall consult them. So I guess if we have judges amongst the nation when we go back to the land, this is who would consult about these matters. It says, and they shall declare to you the decision. Then you shall do according to that, to what they declare to you from that place that the Lord will choose, and you shall be careful to do according to all that they direct you, according to the instructions that they give you, and according to the decision which they pronounce to you, you shall do. You shall not turn aside from the verdict that they declare to you, either to the right or to the left. The man who acts presumptuously by not obeying the priest who stands to minister there before the Lord your God, or the judge, that man shall die. So you shall purge the evil from among Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear and not act presumptuously again. It says, next context is laws concerning Israel's kings. It says, when you come to the land that the Lord your God is giving you, and you possess it and dwell in it, and then say, I will set a king over me like all the nations that are around me. You may indeed set a king over you, whom the Lord your God will choose, one from among your brothers. You shall set a king over you. You may not put a foreigner over you, who is not your brother. Only he must not acquire many horses for himself, or cause the people to return to Egypt in order to acquire many horses. Since the Lord has said to you, you shall never return that way again, and he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away. Nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. And then he sits on the throne of his kingdom. He shall write for himself in the book a copy of this law, approved by the Levitical priests, and it shall be with him. And he shall read it in all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God by keeping all the words of his law and these statutes, and doing them, that his heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, and that he may not turn aside from the commandment either to the right or to the left, so that he may continue long in his kingdom and his children in Israel. We're in chapter 18. It says the provisions for the priests and the Levites. It says, the Levitical priests and all the tribe of Levi shall have no portion of inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the Lord's food offerings as their inheritance. So these are the offerings, the grain and all this sort of stuff that we brought when it was roasted and has a sweet, savory smell. They will then be able to eat it afterwards. They shall have no inheritance among their brothers. The Lord is their inheritance, as he promised them. And this shall be the priests due from the people, from those offering a sacrifice. Whether an ox or a sheep, they shall give to the priest the shoulder and the 2 cheeks and the stomach. The first fruits of your grain, of your wine, of your oil, and the first fleece of your sheep you shall give him. For the Lord your God has chosen him out of all your tribes to stand and minister in the name of the Lord, him and his sons for all time. And if a Levite comes from any of your towns out of all Israel where he lives, and he may come when he desires to the place that the Lord will choose, and ministers in the name of the Lord his God, like all the fellow Levites who stand to minister there before the Lord, Then he may have equal portions to eat, besides what he receives from the sale of his patrimony. And the context here is abominable practices. Okay, it says, when you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practices of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who burns his sons or his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes or interprets omens, or a sorcerer or a charmer or a medium or a necromancer, or one who inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord, and because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. You shall be blameless before the Lord your God, for these nations which you are about to dispossess. Listen to the fortune tellers and to the diviners. But as for you, the Lord your God has not allowed you to do this. The Lord your God will raise up. The context is the new prophet like Moses. This is a prophecy, right? Those of you who talk about saying that, where is the Messiah in the Torah? This is the prophecy here that we're talking about. This is a new prophet like Moses. Right? It says, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers. It is him you shall listen, just as you desired of the Lord your God of Horeb, on the day of the assembly when you said, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, or see this great fire any more, lest I die. So this prophet is going to be like Moses. What did Moses do? What's going to be like him like Moses? Well, Moses was given him was like God to Pharaoh, right? He was given the ability to judge. That's why he was able to righteously judge Pharaoh. Is not the Mashiach? Is he not the one that was worthy to open the seals that are going to judge the nations that have had their hands in our captivity? As well as is he not given the ability to judge on Judgment Day? This is what Moses was able to do. You see what I'm saying? Is it not that Moses also was one that was being, the children, the firstborns were being persecuted, they were being killed, and Moses had to be hid away, right? Away from, the persecution of the firstborns, right? Or male children. Is that not what happened to the Messiah when Herod was killing the firstborn, the male children, and he had to flee to Egypt? This is the prophet like Moses. You can't put Muhammad in this situation because Muhammad has got nothing to do with what Moses did. Moses would judge Pharaoh. That's what the Messiah is going to do. He's judging the nations with all the 7 plagues, with the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, 7 vials. Right? Moses was in the same position, as well as he was also persecuted. That's why he was put in a basket near the river so that someone would find him. Right? Same thing as the Messiah. It was in a time when Herod was going to kill all the he killed male children. Joseph was told to go to Egypt. Okay. It says, I'll raise up from he says, I'll raise up from okay, and the Lord said to me, they are right in what they have spoken. I'll raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers. Right? I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And whoever will not listen to my words that he shall speak in my name. You see this? In my name. Yeah. I myself will require of him. So this is the reason why he is the way, the truth, and the life. Because the Father has said himself specifically that whoever doesn't, he said, I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And whoever will not listen to my words, he says, my words, that he shall speak in my name. So he's not coming in his own name. So by you believing in the Messiah, you're not worshiping another God, because he's not representing himself. He's not saying, please make me a statue and worship me. He's not doing anything like that. Yeah, that's what some people have done. That's to their own destruction. But by the Mashiach coming and fulfilling the things that are written about him, he's not coming and saying, even his name is not even his name. Yeshua is Yah, is the Father's name. Yah is salvation. Yahweh is Yahweh, salvation. So the Messiah is not he even says when he comes, he's going to have a name that no one else knows. So the Mashiach is coming in the name of his Father, and when you're glorifying him or when you're believing in him, you're believing in the Father because the Father's commanded him to do these things. And if you don't believe in him, then you don't believe in the Father. Because what does he say? He says, and whoever will not listen to my words that he shall speak in my name, I myself will require it of him. No, if you don't listen to his words, right? But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name that I've not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that same prophet shall die. And if you say in your heart, how may we know the word that the Lord has not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the word does not come to pass or come true, that is a word that the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You need not to be afraid of him. So the things that the Mashiach says, have they come to pass? That's the question. Is there wars, rumors of wars, pestilences, famines in diverse places? Are those seals being opened? Have we gone into captivity for 400 years? Well, I guess that's not the Mashiach speaking, is it? Chapter 19. The laws concerning cities of refuge. This is the context. It says, when the Lord your God cuts off the nations, whose the land your God is giving you, and you dispossess them and dwell in their cities and in their houses, you shall set apart 3 cities for yourself in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. You shall measure the distance and divide into 3 parts the area of the land that the Lord your God gives you as a possession, so that any manslayer can flee to them. This is the provision for the manslayer who by fleeing there may save his life. If anyone kills his neighbor unintentionally without having hated him in the past, as when someone goes into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood, and his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree, and the head slips from the handle and strikes his neighbor so that he dies, he may flee to one of the cities, right, and live, lest the avenger of the blood in hot anger pursue the manslayer and overtake him, because the way is long, and strike him fatally, though the man did not deserve to die, since he had not hated his neighbor in the past. Therefore I command you, you shall set apart 3 cities, and if the Lord your God enlarges your territory as he has sworn to your father, and gives you all the land that he promised to give to your fathers, provided you are careful to keep all this commandment which I command you today, by loving the Lord your God, and by walking ever in his ways. I would say, I guess it means forever in his ways. Then shall add 3 other cities to these 3, lest innocent blood be shed in your land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance, and so the guilt of the bloodshed shall be upon you. So I guess when we go back to the land, these same cities, I guess we could use them as places of refuge. So if something like this occurs, let them know that these are the places that they should flee to, because it's been ordained that these are the positions that they should flee to. Now, we don't have high priest in that specific venture, so I don't know. Usually, priests were the ones that would live there. You see, so I'm not sure how that would work out. I guess I'd presume that in this dispensation, because we've got other nations that are controlling the lands that we live on, I don't think would really be able to apply such a thing. I guess if someone was killed, the law of the land would be imposed. Because I guess, until the Hamashiach comes, the kingdom is in other people's hands. You see what I'm saying? Until the Messiah comes, he's going to take the kingdom back. It's not us. We haven't got any weapons of warfare. Our weapons of warfare are not carnal, but but mighty through Yah, pulling down strongholds. Right? But it says, but verse 11 says, but if anyone hates his neighbor and lies in wait for him and attacks him and strikes him fatally so that he dies, and he flees into one of the cities, then the elder of his city shall send and take him from there, and hand him over to the avenger of blood, so that he may die. Your eye shall not pity him, but you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, so that it may be well with you. Next context is property boundaries. It says, you shall not move your neighbor's landmark when the men of old have set in the inheritance that you will hold in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. So I guess the land of Ephraim, the land of Manasseh, the land of Issachar, Yahawada, Lewi, all of these different lands. Well, Lewi doesn't really have, Benjamin, or Benjamin. They all have their positions. So we should stick to those things. We're not supposed to remove or change the boundaries in any form or fashion. All right, let's see. It says the laws concerning witnesses. Verse 15 says, a single witness shall not suffice against a person for any crime or for any wrong in connection with any offense that he has committed. Only on the evidence of two witnesses or three witnesses shall a charge be established. If a malicious witness arises to accuse a person of wrongdoing, then both uh, parties to dispute shall appear before the Lord, before the priests and the judges who are in office in those days. The judges shall inquire diligently, and if the witness is a false witness and has accused his brother falsely, then you shall do it to him as he had meant to do to his brother. So you shall purge the evil from your midst, and the rest shall hear and fear, and shall never again commit any such evil among you. Your eye shall not pity, it shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. So this is what it was like in this specific time frame. But now we're post Mashiach. It's a different kind of like. Don't get me wrong. You know, yeah, you can't really exercise this anyway because we live in we're in houses of captivity, so there are laws applied to these lands. So we can't just because someone's killed us, killed someone, or just because someone's killed someone, we can't put them to death. There's laws that apply to the land. Now, if we're in our own land, which someone else is actually there, their laws of the land are applying there at the moment because they're in charge. And I don't think we're going to get that land back until Hamashiach comes. You see what I'm saying? All right, we're going to go chapter 20. It says, laws concerning warfare. It says, when you go out to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots and any army larger than your own, you shall not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when you draw near to the battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the people, and shall say to them, hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near for battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint. Do not fear or panic or be in dread of them, for the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you the victory. Then the officers shall speak to the people, saying, is there any man who has built a new house and has not dedicated it? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. And is there any man who has planted a vineyard and has not enjoyed its fruit? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in battle, and another man enjoy its fruit. And is there any man who has betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in battle, and another man take her. And the officers shall speak further to the people and say, is there any man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go back to his house, and lest he make the heart of his fellow melt like his own. So, we're talking about war here. Anyone that has any issues with the mental, the love, the heart, okay, one should stay home. Based on these precautions here, or these things that he's mentioned, these are the reasons why you shouldn't really be going to battle. Okay. It says that when the officers have finished speaking to the people, then the commander shall be appointed at the head of the people. When you draw near to the city to fight against it, offer terms of peace to it. And if it responds to you peacefully and it opens to you, then all the people who are found in it shall be forced labor for you and shall serve you. But if it makes no peace with you, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God gives it into your hand, you shall put all its male to the sword, but the women and the little ones, the livestock, and everything else in the city, all its spoil, you shall take as plunder for yourself. So this is a law for this is how we battle. This is how we go to war, the children of Israel. If we go into a land and they bring peace, and the fathers told us to go and take this land, i.e., let's go into Israel, they are going to have to work for us if they're peaceful. But if they want to make war, we're supposed to put all their males to the sword and their children and their women. What it says, but the women and the little ones, the livestock and everything else, all is spoil, and you shall take it as plunder for yourselves. And there's laws about why, like women acquired through slavery, or prisoners of war. That's it. And it says, and you shall enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. Thus you shall do to all the cities that are very far from you, which are not cities of the nations here, but in the cities of these people that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance. You shall save alive nothing that breathes, but you shall devote them to complete destruction. The Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded, that they may not teach you to do according to all their abominable practices that they have done for their gods, and so you sin against the Lord your God. When you besiege a city for a long time, making war against it in order to take it, you shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. You may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. Are the trees in the field human that they should be besieged by you? Only the trees that you know are not trees for food you may destroy and cut down, that you may build siege works against the city that makes war with you until it fails. Through the Spirit, let's keep going. I've got a feeling this is the new moon. Hallelujah. Only reason being is that usually on a normal day, I wouldn't be able to read as many scriptures as I've been doing. But on the Shabbat and on the new moon, usually the Spirit is very high. More so higher on the Shabbat, Yawam. But on the new moon, it's steady, but it's steady enough that it can keep me motivated to keep reading for. Like, I feel like I could almost read. I could finish the whole book of Deuteronomy, if time permit. If the Spirit wants me to. Anyway, we're in chapter 21. It says the atonement for this unsolved murders. It says, if in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess, someone is found slain, lying in the open country, and it is not known who killed him, then your old elders and your judges shall come out, and they shall measure the distance to the surrounding cities. And the elders of the city that is nearest to the slain man shall take a heifer that has never been worked, and that has not pulled in a yoke, and the elders of the city shall bring the heifer down to a valley with running water, which is neither ploughed nor sown, and shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. Then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come forward, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him and to bless in the name of the Lord, and be their word. Every dispute and every assault shall be settled, and all the elders of the city nearest to the slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley, and they shall testify, our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it shed. Accept atonement, O Lord, for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, and not set the guilt of innocent blood in the midst of the people Israel, so that their blood guilt be atoned for. So you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from your midst when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord. Okay, so that's dealing with an unsolved murder. Yeah, which is an issue because a cow just is being killed for no reason. You see what I'm saying? If we were to know about this, then that cow could have been spared, right? The context of the next part, it says marrying female captives. It says, when you go out to war against your enemies and the Lord your God gives them into your hand and you take them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman and you desire to take her to be your wife, you bring her home to your house. She shall shave her head and pare her nails. I'm not sure what pair is, but actually, what's that? Let me just see what pair. What does pair mean? Oh, okay, so it just means to remove the edges. So it means to cut down. It's basically just to cut to a short. And she shall take off the clothes in which she was captured, and she shall remain in her house and lament her father and her mother a full month. After that you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. But if you no longer delight in her, you shall let her go where she wants, but you shall not sell her for money, nor shall you treat her as a slave, since you have humiliated her. So there is a law about marrying captives. Okay, so this actually shows you there's a distinction. The father told us not to marry the Canaanites, right? Now, clearly, if you couple this with this scripture, there's obviously this is a law that is basically meaning that if you were to go and conquer other lands that didn't necessarily have Canaanites there, right? And you desired one of the women's that you got spoils of war, you are able to what? To marry her, only that you give her a month to mourn her father. Yeah, if it says that her mother. Okay. But then it says if you go, you can go into her. But then afterwards, if you no longer delight in her, then you shall let her go free because you've humiliated her. Okay, so it says next context. It says inheritance rights is of the firstborn. It says if a man has two wives, right? Again, this just shuts down most people's understanding about whether you can have two wives or not. Because it says if a man has two wives, and the one loved and the other unloved, and both the loved and the unloved have borne him children, and if the firstborn son belongs to the unloved, then on the day when he assigns his possessions as an inheritance to his sons, he may not treat the son of the loved as the firstborn in preference to the son unloved, who is the firstborn, but he shall acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the unloved, by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the first fruits of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. So this is what we class as the birthright. And this is what, you know, Esau, the Edomites, they sold Edom, he sold to Yaakov or Jacob. Okay. That was just one part. That was the double portion. That was the fact that out of what the father is Isaac was going to give his children, Jacob was going to get double portion. That was already sold. Okay. But the blessing is something different. That's something that when you're upon your father's deathbed, he blesses his children, right? And I would advise anyone who has children, that's what you should do. You should bless your children so that they know that what they're going to receive, right? And Jacob managed to get that as well. That's a totally different thing, you see. So, like, same thing with Joseph. Joseph has got the birthright, so he's got the double portion. That's why Manasseh got a double portion in the land, because Manasseh is actually Joseph's rightful firstborn. So that's where the birthright lay. But the blessing was on Ephraim's head. That's what happened. You see what I'm saying? So when we read the blessing of Joseph, that blessing is going on the head of Ephraim. You see what I'm saying? That's why we have that spirit. You see what I'm saying? We have that spirit. All right. Let's continue. So it says, oh yeah, it says a rebellious son. It says if a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and though they discipline him, will not listen to them, then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring out to the elders of his city at the gate of the place where he lives, and they shall say to the elders of his city, our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of the city shall stone him to death with his son, with stones. So you shall purge the evil from your midst, and all Israel shall fear and hear. Okay, so that's dealing with a rebellious son. Okay, next context, it says, a man hanged on a tree. A man hanged on a tree is cursed. It says, and if a man has committed a crime punishable by death, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night on the tree, but you shall bury him the same day, for a hanged man is cursed by God. You shall not defile your land, the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance. Okay? Let's continue. We've got some, unclean forces trying to, let's just say, intentionally prevent this from working. But I rebuke Edom in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, because he knows what he's doing, and he's trying to gain some form of life in a way, in a form of fashion that's unnatural. It's conniving. If you want something, you speak to them. Say to them, I want to know something. You don't do things in a manner that, it's like as if you've got a hidden agenda. You see what I'm saying? That's not how you do things. It's not right. Anyway, let's go to chapter 22. Various laws. It says, you shall not see your brother's ox or his sheep going astray and ignore them. You shall not take them back to your brother. And if he does not live near you and you do not know who he is, you shall bring it home to your house, and it shall stay with you until your brother seeks it. Then you shall restore it to him, and you shall do the same with his donkey, or with his garment, or with any lost thing, or of your brother's, which he loses, and you find, you may not ignore it. You shall not see your brother's donkey or his ox fallen down by the way and ignore them. You shall help him to lift them up again. Okay? So this is dealing with how to love your neighbor as yourself, right? It says, a woman shall not wear a man's garment, right? We've seen this in that Aswa captivity. And nor shall a man put on a woman's cloak. We've seen this in films, right? For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord your God. If you come across a bird's nest in any tree or on the ground with young ones or eggs, and the mother sitting on the young or on the eggs, you shall not take the mother with the young. You shall let the mother go, but the young you may take for yourself, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long. When you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof, that you may not bring the guilt of blood upon your house, if anyone should fall from it. This parapet thing, this is talking about, in the time. So if you go and look in Israel, you'll find that you've got buildings where the roof is flat. This parapet is like a wall, on the edge, so that if you were to go up on the roof, because some people used to do that, there used to be steps on the side, so that you could go up on the side and you can go onto the roof. And it's like a boundary, so that people, when they go up on the roof, they can't fall off the edge and die. That's what this parapet means. It's just like a wall to prevent people from falling off, right? It says, you shall not sow your vineyard with two kinds of seeds, lest the whole yield be forfeited. The crop that you have sown and the yield of the vineyard, you shall not plow with an ox and a donkey together. You shall not wear clothes of wool and linen mixed together. This is something that I'm trying to do my best. I mean, this is linen. This is cotton. These are all cotton. I've got these all 100% cotton. Actually, today, I'm wearing garments that are 100%. These are all, I'm 100% sure. This is linen. This is 100% linen. These are all 100% cotton. And then my shorts I'm wearing are 100% cotton as well. So they're breathable, not polyester and all this sort of stuff. It's not good for your pores and things like that. It closes them up and makes it difficult for your skin to breathe. Your skin is an organ. It requires you know, it needs to breathe. It's got holes and stuff like that. You may not see them, but if you were to get a microscope, you'll find that you've got holes, especially where the hairs are coming out. They're holes. If you're wearing things that are going to entrap, you know, just prevent your skin to breathe, then know that you're going to have problems, aren't you? This is one of the reasons. Okay. All right. So it says, it says you shall not wear cloth of wool and linen mixed together. Okay. You shall make yourselves tassels on the four corners of your garments with which you cover yourself. I need to do this. I mean, some of my garments I don't actually have them, but I need to start doing this. I need to on my, I've got a tunic there which it's got my tassels on there. It's got tassels with the cord of blue there. But I need to do it more so. I need to, maybe I just need to start doing it myself, or get a wife. She can do it. If she can do it, that'd be nice, obviously, wouldn't it? Anyway, let's continue. Verse 13, it says, if any the laws concerning sexual immorality, it says, if any man takes a wife and goes into her and then hates her and accuses her of misconduct and brings a bad name upon her, saying, I took this woman, and when I came near her, I did not find her evidence of virginity. Then the father of the young woman and her mother shall take and bring out the evidence of her virginity to the elders of the city in the gate. And the father of the young woman shall say to the elder, I gave my daughter to this man to marry, and he hates her. And behold, he accused her of misconduct, saying, I did not find in your daughter evidence of virginity, and yet this is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloak before the elders of the city. Then the elders of the city shall take the man and whip him, and they shall fine him 100 shekels of silver, and give them to the father of the young woman, because he has brought a bad name upon a virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife, and he may not divorce her all his days. But if the thing is true that evidence of virginity was not found in the young woman, then they shall bring out the young woman to the door of her father's house, and the men of the city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done an outrageous thing in Israel by whoring in her father's house. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. If a man is found lying with the wife of another man, okay, which we know is adultery, both of them shall die, the man who laid with the woman and the woman. So you shall purge the evil from amongst Israel. If there is a betrothed virgin, a man meets her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out to the gate of that city, and you shall stone them to death with stones. The young woman, because she did not cry for help, though she was in the city, and the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. Yeah, so that's dealing with, she's not necessarily married, but she's betrothed. Betrothed is like the modern day being engaged. Okay, last part of the chapter, we're going to end it. It says, but if the open country a man meets a young woman who is betrothed, and the man seizes her and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. But you shall do nothing to the young woman. She has committed no offense, punishable by death. For this case is like that of a man attacking and murdering his neighbor, because he met her in the open country. And though the betrothed young woman cried for help, there was no one to rescue her. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed and seizes her and lies with her, and they are found, then the man who lay with her shall give to the father of the young woman 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has violated her. He may not divorce her all his days. A man shall not take his father's wife, so that he does not uncover his father's nakedness. So we are ending on chapter 22. I only hope the reader and listening to this word has come up with some form of edification to the reading of this word. Still a bit skeptical about whether today is the first day of the month, but through the Spirit, I kind of feel it is. But I guess tomorrow I'll definitely I'll definitely know tomorrow. It's one of them things that when it happens so late in the evening, it's very difficult for one to, especially these days where the sky is almost you can't see the moon. You see what I'm saying? So it's like it's through the spirit. Obviously, I could follow the watchman, but I used to do. He's not even on the right. Um, he's like a month. He's like a month late. So he's dealing with that. This is the 5th month. When really this is actually the 6th month. And also, how we know this is because even the months themselves, they leave a little trail. Shaitan, left a little trail. Once, yeah, they left a little trail because when you look at sept, the word sept in, say, these modern European languages, sept actually represents 7. So if you count January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, that's 9, right? Which doesn't correlate with 7, right? But if you were to go to how we understand the biblical narrative of when the first month is starting, it would have been in sometime in spring, which is when the what? Spring is the season. So the season, it would have been when there's equal day, equal night, which is sometime in March. So the first new moon would have started in sometime in March, right? So the first month would have been March, April, right? Let's just say it's March, April, April, May, May, June, June, July, July, August, August, September. And then it would be in September, October, right? That would have been the 7th month. You see what I'm saying? The 7th month would have started in September. And then what's the next month? October, November. Oct in these European languages actually represents 8, octagon, octopus, 8, right? November, 9, still similar. November 9 is still dealing with the letter N, right? December is still the decimal, it's dealing with 10. So you can see that nothing it hasn't really changed. They've tried to change some things, but they couldn't really hide everything. There's false truths out there, but through the spirit we can find that understanding. So that's how I know we're definitely on track with the months. Just establishing the new moons is one of the things that is always a bit difficult one. But I've seen through experience that it's typically when the first month the end of the first month and the second month of a season, it should go behind the moon for 2 days. It's then the last month of the season, which would be the 3rd month, it would go down behind the moon for 1 day, right? Which will make it a 29-day month, right? And then there's an intercalary day, which sometimes falls sometime within the season, which we never really ever know. And there's a lot of brothers and some elders as well that are splitting hairs. They're trying to count days and all this stuff. It's irrelevant. It don't make any sense for you to even try to do so. It's quite straightforward. If you start from 1 month, right, and you count and you observe the 12 months, you should end up back on that same period next year. If you do, that means that you're observing it correctly, the 12 months. Those who are adding 13 months and also don't make no sense. Why would the fact there's 12 tribes of Israel, there was 12 disciples, where would the 13th come from? That's deception. That's a problem. That's something that we need to just deal with what is written and understand that if you're in a different time frame on this planet, so if you're in America, know that your Shabbat may end up falling a day later than when it would be, say, if it was in the UK or if it's out in Israel. You see, I've noticed that that's typically what is the case. I mean, I'm not sure about UK and America, but I know that some people tend to observe the Shabbat a day after I do. And I typically observe the Shabbat a day after Israel. Those are in Israel. When we understand the land of Pangaea is when the whole world was in one position. It was all like from North Pole to South Pole. It's all connected. So if you were to observe the Shabbat, it would all have been on the same time because all the time difference would have been minimal because everything was in the middle of the earth. Do you see what I'm saying? But now, because everything's split, this is where we can have slight differences in regards to time. So may Yahweh bless you, may Yahweh keep you, may Yahweh shine his face upon you, may Yahweh be gracious to you, may Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you, and may Yahweh grant you everlasting peace. In Yeshua HaMashiach's name I pray. Selah.